Hey guys, it's Amy at Zoe Beck, and I thought I would do a mid-June wrap-up because I've been reading a lot this month. I've already read about 2,200 words, and I've read 8 books or novellas, and I've also, read some graphic novels so far today, and I was just like, oh, I gotta get stuff done, and I also have some library books that are gonna go back, so I thought I'd better do kind of a wrap-up to kind of show those books while I had them. And, I thought if I waited till the end of the month, it would be super long for a wrap up. So I thought, oh, I'll just do it now. So, okay, well, let's just get into it and I'm actually very impressed with how much I've read so far this month. I don't usually read this consistently every day, but then that's kind of the same. If I'm writing a lot, then I don't read as much. It's offset. So right now I'm not writing much at all. So all my energy is kind of going to the reading, and I've been actually pretty good with what books I've gotten I'm really enjoyed. So I'll just go ahead and start. A book that I was reading at the end of May that went into June was A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I enjoyed this. I'm not going to say I loved it. I enjoyed it enough to say, hey, it was kind of fun. The best part about it was really a fast read. I mean, the chapters are super short and it just kind of goes and goes and goes. No cat. Sorry. My cat's trying to get on top of me. Anyway, and he's biting me. Anyway, I gave this 4 stars. I really like the magic system. I like the alternate worlds. The fact there aren't that many people who can go between the 2 worlds. And again, I don't want to go into too much depth on the story itself, except that I know a lot of people have read this recently because the 3rd book just finally came out, and again, this is the 1st book, so I finally got it and decided to read it. I enjoyed it enough. I think I did have a slow point in the middle, which is why I gave it a 4, and it might even edge down to a 3.75 if I was getting technical, because there are certain things I didn't like so much about it. To me, it wasn't maybe it wasn't as strong on the world building as I wanted. I think there's a lot to this. I'm hoping the 2nd and 3rd book kind of complete more of the stuff that I wanted to know about. But I thought it ended up really well, and that's why I gave it a 4 at the end, is because it wrapped it up really well, and I'm actually surprised there are more books. I thought it did pretty well of wrapping all it up. So I'm kind of curious to see what happens. I haven't started the 2nd book yet. That is going to be something I'm probably going to read in July, or at the end of this month. It matters how my reading goes. If I keep going so well, I might get to it, because I have a couple books ahead of it. But I enjoyed it enough that I'm glad I read it, and I will continue on to see what happens. Because I have no idea what happens after this book, because I have not looked. I don't let myself read the spoilers or to read the description. I don't want to know, because I'm already into the series and I'm committed. So the 2nd book I read this month was A Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I had to read this for my sci-fi book club that I go to, so I had to read it by the 2nd Tuesday of the month. It was a really quick read for me because it's only 240 pages or something, and I'd never read this classic, or modern classic, and so I really wanted to read it since everybody's talking about this one in 1984, which I've not read Orwell yet, so he's on the list of hopefully this next month or 2 I'll get to that. But I actually really enjoyed most of this. Not as in, like, that's the world we want to live in. I mean, I loved the first section, all the world building and how the whole utopia exists. I thought that was really interesting and well imagined, considering this was written in 1932. So I did like that part. The second part I wasn't quite so. I've never liked some of the sci-fi stereotype, the thing with the whole stranger in a strange land thing. I know that was later, but I meant the savage, or the noble savage who comes to the real world, or the modern world. And I don't always like those stories as much, so I didn't really care much for that section, and I kind of felt bad because the characters I did like in the first section, I didn't like in the 2nd section because of that, of what happened. And then it kind of just melted down from there for me. I did not like the way it went in the end. I did like parts of it, but I didn't like the way it how it ended. Anyway, but I'm not saying that it shouldn't have ended like that. I just said, well, I didn't care for it. Anyway, so I gave this 3 stars only because of the 3 sections, I really only liked one really, really well, and the rest of it to me was just like, I don't care. So I'm glad I read it, and again, as I said, I want to go on to read George Orwell to 1984 to kind of compare that, or maybe get some of the other ones that are supposed to be kind of the same in that time period of the utopia dystopia thing to read on and find out. Just because, again, all those references you hear all the time, I didn't quite understand them for Brave New World. Now I kind of get it, and I want to do the same thing for 1984. So another book that I just finished was actually my first TBR jar pick that I picked in May. I actually read Generation V by M.L. Brennan, and I actually really enjoyed this for this urban fantasy with vampires. The main character is a young man who, just out of college, very broke, trying to live on his own because in order to be self-sufficient, he has to be able to live on his own. He has to be self-sufficient and, not take handouts from his family. So he is pretty much dirt poor, like a lot of college graduates are when they first get out. So that part was all very realistic. The fact that he is going to become a vampire because he was born of vampire blood. Anyway, the world building is really well done in this. I liked that, and he, again, is still mostly human. So it's very realistic that way. And again, then there's the mystery of, people dying, and he gets involved, and he gets to meet a shapeshifter, which was awesome. I liked her a lot. Suzumi, she was awesome. Anyway, I like this. It was I think it has 4 books in the series, so this is the only the first one, and I bought this a while ago, so I picked it out of my jar and I read it. I actually really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars because I thought world building was really great and setting up of the world in the series. I will continue on to the next book. I haven't gotten it yet. I'm gonna check my library first. I didn't find it at the used bookstore when I was there the other day, so I'm gonna get more of these just to read them. I don't know if it's one I'll keep, but at least I've read it, and it's one off of my TBR that has been on my shelf for at least sometime this year. It's been several months since I bought that. So, as I said, I really liked it for an urban fantasy with vampires. I still like vampire stuff. I'm not, but then I've been reading it before they were super hyped though too. So, many years when they were just more fun back in the 80s and 90s. Anyway, so the next book I read was Stephen King's The Wind Through the Keyhole, and this is book 4.5 in the Dark Tower series. This was one of my currently reads books that I had on Goodreads that I stopped reading for some reason about the 60 or 80 page mark, and 120. That's right. I made it to 121 out of like 300 pages. I don't know why I stopped. I think I was writing a lot at the time, and so I lost interest or something else happened and my brain switched and I didn't get back to this. Anyway, so I reread the 120 pages and then I continued on and finished it, and I'm glad I did. I kind of know why I stopped once I read through it, it was kind of a boring part where I stopped, which is, if I just got another page or two, I would have been okay, but oh well, that happens. So overall, I gave this, I think, a 4 stars. Yeah. So because it was in the Dark Tower series, and again, it has my favorite characters from that series are in the beginning and the end of this, as well as Roland's stories in the kind of bracketed in that. It was kind of an interesting format for that. Overall, I really liked it, and I'm glad I finally read it. It was the last of the Dark Tower series that I hadn't read yet. So, anyway, so then the next book was a library book that I had picked up because I had seen it on Mercy's Bookish Musings on her channel when she had read it a month or 2 ago, and I picked up The Clay Girl by Heather Tucker. And cat. See, Cooper has to come visit me every freaking video. Anyway, he's just like that. Anyway, I really enjoyed this. I was kind of worried about it. If you saw my June TBR, I mentioned that I wasn't sure I wanted to pick up something that could be, pretty dark or that was more literary than I had currently been reading, recently. Cat. I am so glad I picked this up. I got into it super fast. It was a really, it was a read that I didn't want to put down. Like, I picked the book up, I did not want to stop. I thought the writing itself was beautiful, even through the hardest passages. I had such problems because about midway through the book, I wasn't sure I wanted to continue reading. Hey, cat, you're stuck. Sorry. I got stuck, like I wanted to stop the book because it was so hard, because there was just so many things were going in her life that I was, it was painful for me. And coming from somebody with a really good background, like I didn't have a hard childhood. I totally admit that. I had it really easy, and never had to worry about my parents or what they would do or say, or they're still there for me even now. So the point is, it was so hard there in the middle, but I persevered because it was still such beautiful writing, and I felt for this character Ari, and it follows her through her. It's like a coming of age story, but it's just so heartbreaking, and yet it was beautiful. And I totally recommend this to anybody, even though there's a lot of I would say trigger warnings, if anything, for abuse, and it was really good, and I totally recommend it. And anybody who wants to read it should read it. As I said, I got it from the library. I am probably going to pick up my own copy because it was really nice, and I'd really like to keep that. So, and then the next two things I read were on my Kindle. So let's see if I can get this to work, because I still can't put the pictures in. So I read, River of Teeth by Sarah Galley. This is a novella. It's about 150 pages, and it was just like a fun romp. It's cowboys on hippos on the Mississippi, or around that area, and down in Louisiana and stuff. It was in the South. It was just great. It was just funny. Again, I gave this 4 stars. Oh no, I gave it a 3. Okay, I remember now why I gave it a 3. So I wanted to give it a 4. I really wanted to give it a 4, but it was just too short, and it was too fast. They were the story, it was moving really fast. It was a fast read. I mean, don't get me wrong, I read it in 2 or 3 sittings. It was not a huge time commitment. My problem was that there was just not enough. I wanted more world building. I wanted more the characters. I wanted to learn more about them before things started happening to them, and some of them had bad things happen to them, and I wanted to be more invested, and I didn't feel like I got that. I felt it was just too short. There's a second one. I don't know if they're going to do 2 or 3 novellas, because I think this is one of the tours that are, they do smaller books. So the second one's coming out in September. I will probably still buy that on Kindle to see if I to continue the story, to see what happens. But again, I liked it enough. The world, the stuff about the world, I wanted that. I wanted more. I wanted a whole novel of it. I wanted more explanation. I wanted more into the characters. I wanted to like them more. I just felt like we got just a little bit, like a small sketch of them, and then things started happening, and then you see them react, and some of it made sense, some of it didn't. I just felt I just wanted more. So anyway, so the other book I read was a new release, which was Silver Silence by Nalini Singh. This is, I think I said book number 14 or 15, I think. And it is the next book in the Side Changeling series. And this is an automatic buy for me. I don't buy hardbacks very often, but if it's something I really, really want, I'll buy the Kindle version, and then I'll probably buy a mass paperback version later on. I love this story. I read this in a couple of days. For being over 450 pages. I pretty much devoured it, and I totally, as I said, that series is one of her longest, and I would, even though they say, oh yeah, you could start there, it's no problem. No, it's not one of those series. I would recommend starting at the very beginning, which is Slave to Sensation. And again, I love her other series too, but she is definitely one of my favorite paranormal romance writers. It's not just because she does her romance really well and her relationships really well. The world building is wonderful. And again, as a fantasy reader, I just adore how she made those worlds. And this is definitely one of my favorite series, and she's an auto buy for me. And there's not many I can say where it's boom, yeah, I buy your book no matter what you buy, whatever you put out. And then, so then another, I just want to put that out that I did reread Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna McGuire, because that next day I got Down Among the Sticks and Bones by her, which is number 2 in the Wayward Children series. I think that's what they're calling it. This was, I wasn't sure going into this what I was going to get. I mean, I knew that this is kind of a prequel to Every Heart a Doorway, and I figured, because I loved Every Heart a Doorway last year when I read it, and just rereading it again, loved it again still. It's still 5 stars for me. This I would give just barely into the 4. There's a lot about this I liked. Again, it was Shauna McGuire has good world building, and her characters are cool, and I like that they're very, and then again, a lot of diversity in here. I like that people were not cut and dried. You didn't quite know a lot of stuff that, it explained a lot of what I saw in Every Heart a Doorway for the 2 main characters from this book. So that was pretty cool. I just felt this book was not as engaging as that one because it was a prequel. It was telling the story of these girls' lives before they got to go on their adventure. Again, the series talks about children who find doorways to other dimensions, other worlds, like Narnia and Wonderland and that kind of thing. And I still think there's so much in here, which is Every Heart a Doorway. The thing I wanted it to be longer and more. I feel the same way about this one. I think that's a common theme you're going to hear if I ever have short novels. I want more. I am definitely, I want more details. I want more. And this is, again, another one I want more. So I'm really interested to see. The 3rd book, I think, comes out in December, and it's of a character that I really like I want to find out how that's going to work. But again, I love those books, but I would say, as I said, I gave it about a 4. It wasn't spectacular, but it was fun. Like, I still had a fun writing. I still read it, like, within a day. Because, again, it was like 187 pages, and I'm like, I must read it. And I finished it. Anyway, so, I'm in the middle of a readathon today of Getting Graphic, which is being led by 2 other booktubers. I'll have that link down below. It's happening today on the 27th or the 17th. So if you happen to see this today and you still want to do it, hey, go 24 hours of reading comics or manga. So I'm just going to show these because I've taken back to the library with the Clay Girl. So I'm just going to add these to my read. I just read 4 more volumes of Saga, which is volume 3, 4, oops, that was 5. Sorry, 4, 5, and 6. I didn't have 7 at the library. It's still, like, list is out quite a ways, so I probably won't get it for another month or so, but I'll get to read that at some point. But I read those this morning, so hey, I did pretty good for Getting Graphic. Anyway, so then I just thought I'd mention really quickly that I did DNF a book that's off my current reads on Goodreads. I DNF'd Thunderhead by Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child. I like their Pendergast series. I'm not really keen on this standalone, and I'm just going to give it back to my friend who I borrowed it from. I have no inclination to read it. And I'm also currently reading, I'm knocking some of those off, is Dead Iron, The Age of Steam by Devin Monk. And I'm just reread the part that I had read before, so I'm only about 80 or 90 pages in right now. And so I'm enjoying it. I can see why I maybe put this down one time. It's not as fast moving as I want it to be, but I still like the steampunk elements with fae and other weird, strange things. So I'm enjoying that. And that's what I'm reading currently. Supposedly, I'm supposed to be reading War and Peace. But I will tell you, I have not made it past the 2nd day. I am way behind on that. And I found that I am not a reader of someone who can read, 20, 30 pages today or a day in a book and then switch to something else. I am definitely a reader nowadays. I read one thing and I read it all the way to the end, or I DNF, or I stop reading it and change books. I don't read two things at once. So I don't know about War and Peace. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to just start reading it in July and just read it straight and just forget about the read along where they're all doing it by the week. Again, I'll link that down below as well, because they're doing there's a couple of YouTubers who are doing that as well, and I'm just not doing well. I'm finding I don't read that way. I've never really read that way. I usually just read something until the end and then I change. I don't read multiples anymore, or ever really have. So anyway, so that is all I read currently so far into June. This is kind of long. I didn't mean for the video to go this long, but we'll see. As I said, I'm doing really well. I'm reading almost 75 pages a day. For me, that's huge for during the work week and stuff. So some days I read a lot more than others, and then other days not quite as much, but I've really enjoyed my reading this month so far. So we'll see what I get to by the end of the month. And anyway, if you have any comments or questions or suggestions, whatever, let me know in the comments, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.